Oh, crap.
Hi.
Hi, guys. Getting you guys in here real quick. So take me a minute here, folks. We're trying to get everybody roll taken. That's all. All right. Let's see here. So why is my... Oh, that's probably why. Matthias, I need to turn your camera off, please. We're recording, and I cannot record if you guys have your camera on. Carter. So I'm going to wait for a few more minutes to try and let everybody get in. Thank you, Matthias. All right. Okay. What is going on here? Oh, come on. For some reason, my camera is not working. Meeting info. It says in settings. Oh, come on. Seriously. Let's get rid of...
Okay.
There we go. That's what I needed. All right, let's see if there's anybody else coming in. I'm guessing chances are pretty slim for most of them. All right, so you guys can hear me okay? It's clear with this. I put a little fuzzy thing on there. It's supposed to help. I hope. Let's make sure this works. Okay, so there's people coming in again. It may be one of those days. All right, so today we're going to take a look at the jointer, okay? This generally goes a lot nicer when you guys are in here, but I'm hoping this comes out okay for you guys, all right? So basically, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go through the same process I'd normally go through in introducing you guys to the jointer if you were standing in the classroom, okay? And once this is done, if I can figure out how to do it, I will post it on today's classroom page so that people that miss it can come and see it, all right? So let's take a minute here and talk about the main parts of a jointer, okay? So what we have right here, this section right here, this is our in-feed table, okay? That's where the board starts. We're gonna feed our material this direction across the cutter head. This is our outfeed table right here, okay? Our fence and our guard. That's really all you guys need to know in regards to the parts of a jointer, okay? So let's take a little bit closer look and we'll show you how this thing really kind of works. So what we're looking at now is the guard itself, which covers the cutter head, okay? This particular jointer is a Powermatic 8-inch helical head jointer. Now I'm not sure if you can really see it, but all these individual cutters, okay, they're not lined up in a straight line, they're lined up a little bit of an angle. That's what makes it a helical head. There's 54 individual solid carbide knives in here, okay? And the nice thing about it is each of these knives has 4 sides, okay? So if one side gets chipped or they get dull, all we have to do is loosen that little screw, rotate the thing 90 degrees, and we've got a brand new fresh cutting edge, okay? Now, here's the basis for how a jointer works. Okay, I'm gonna get down here on my knees so you can see it. I'm gonna take a square here, I'm gonna place it on the outfeed table, okay? Right over a knife. Now when I rotate this, I don't know if you guys can hear that. Okay, what that means is that the outfeed table is at the same height of the knives when the knives are at the top of their rotation. Okay, so in other words, if I took a piece of paper or a piece of cardboard and laid it across here, these knives would just barely touch it. Now, if you can see it, the in-feed table right here is set lower than the outfeed table. So for example, if I have this in-feed table set 1/8 of an inch lower than this outfeed table, then it's going to remove 1/8 of an inch of material. If I set it at 1/16 of an inch below the outfeed table, it'll take off 1/16 of an inch with each pass, okay? So that's kind of the basis of this guy. This in-feed table is adjustable. The outfeed table is obviously adjustable. But we really don't mess with them much. We leave them at about between 1/16 and 1/8 of an inch. So that's about how much material it's going to remove. Now there's more to a jointer than just that. Let's back this out a little bit. So there's a lot more to a jointer than just that. For example, this fence can slide in and out, all right? The fence can also tilt, okay? I don't think we've ever used it in the tilt function, but that presents a particular sort of problem. One of the main functions of the jointer is to flatten, straighten, and square the edge of a board. In other words, we're trying to take a board and get one edge of this board perfectly flat, perfectly square, and straight, okay? We can't do that if this fence is not at 90 degrees. And since that's adjustable, and it's actually off right now, and since this is a high school classroom, that tends to go out of adjustment quite a bit. So we check that on a regular basis. Because most of what, in fact, everything that you guys would be doing on the jointer in here, it's just flattening, straightening, and squaring the edge of a board. And that necessitates placing it against the fence, tight against the fence. And if that fence isn't square, it's not going to work. So the other function of this jointer, okay, besides flattening, straightening, and squaring the edge of a board, is to flatten the face of a board, okay? So for example, you guys can see these pencil marks along the surface of this board right now, okay? So if I turn it on, and run it through, we basically removed all those pencil marks and a really nice flat surface, okay? So that's the other purpose of it. Now, general safety rules when it comes to the jointer. Let's let another person in here. All right, so you're actually going to have a little quiz on this probably tomorrow. And it's not hard. I don't want you to sweat it.
Okay.
A little multiple choice quiz, all right? Okay. A couple people having a couple questions in the chat. I'll get to them in just a little bit, okay? A couple basic safety things about the jointer. Number one, minimum length of your board is 12 inches. In other words, your board has to be at least 12 inches long to be able to use it on the jointer. So for example, let's see if I have something here. I do. So this is a piece of maple. And this maple being, let's see if you guys can see this, just a little over 11¼ inches long. Let's see if I can do this. I'm curious how well this shows up. All right, about 11¼ inches long. Okay, I cannot run this through the jointer. Actually, there's several machines in the shop we could not run this through. The jointer is one, the table saw is one, the planer, the drum sander. That's about it. Well, the panel saw and the panel router, they're just too big for something like this. Okay, so there's several machines that have a minimum 12-inch length requirement. Okay. Next thing, major safety point on the jointer. You will always use push pads. Okay, and I'm looking into getting some better ones. I saw one on one of the videos here. Okay, you have to always use push pads. You cannot use this machine with your bare hands. Not going to happen. Another thing we don't do in the shop here, I haven't mentioned it before, is we do not wear gloves. Okay, now there are situations where we might wear rubber gloves for painting or staining or something like that. But we don't wear gloves in here, and the biggest reason for that is there's a lot of rotating machinery that something like a glove can get caught in. So we tend to either roll our sleeves up or not have baggy sleeves, no gloves, no baggy clothing, no baggy jackets, No hanging or dangling jewelry, things like that. None of that stuff's allowed in the shop. And obviously no earbuds either. So I've got somebody else trying to get in. Where is Ray? Right here. Okay. So those are kind of the basics. Now this is one of those machines, actually just about every machine in here, makes a very specific sound when it's running properly. Tends to make a very specific sound during a cutting process or procedure. And the joiner is really, really an interesting play on that. So in the shop, you're going to use all your senses, your sense of sight, hearing, touch, smell, everything. And on the joiner, the two that are going to matter the most are your sense of touch and your sense of hearing, okay? Your sense of touch, because as you feed a board through the machine, you'll feel when it gets a little easier to go, it gets a little more difficult to go, okay? And you're definitely going to hear it. I'm hoping when I do this, you're going to hear the difference. So what I've got here is I've got a piece of pine, okay? I'm going to mark the edge up real good, because this is what you guys would be using this machine for pretty much exclusively, is flattening, straightening, and squaring the edge of a board. Now, in order for this to work, you have to have a flat face to put against the fence. So we're going to joint this face first. And I want you to listen to the machine. The microphone's pretty close to it, so you should be able to hear it. But I want you to listen to the machine and listen to the sound it makes as it's milling. Try to hear if it gets quieter or louder. In other words, try to hear if you can tell when the cutters are actually engaging the surface of the wood. So we're going to joint the face of this first. Okay, we have to have a flat face to work with. Okay, so here we go. Push pads, 12-inch. Now you should have been able to hear, that was a pretty consistent sound along the entire length of it. Okay, so if we take a look at the surface, what you're going to find is all the pencil marks are gone. Okay, but I just noticed something about this. I don't know if you can see it or not, but let's point it out. This is interesting. Okay, I don't know if you can see it or not, but let's try turning it a little bit. I'm looking at it in the screen. There's a little, here it is, a little line all the way along the length of it, running like that. Okay, in other words, that's what that tells me is one of the teeth are chipped. And I'm curious if I can spot it. Yep, there it is right there. There's a chipped tooth. So we'll have to change one of those blades out. Now, so what we have is we have one flat surface, okay? So that has been jointed. Okay, so that's our flat face, all right? So that flat face has to go against the fence, all right? So the one job you guys will use this joiner for more than anything else in here, let's try it, okay? So we're going to joint the edge of this board. Hopefully what we're going to end up with is an edge that's flat, straight, and 90 degrees to this face we just jointed, all right? So this is where it gets important for you to listen to the machine. I want to see if you can tell when the cutter's engaged in the edge of the board and when it's not, okay? So just listen carefully, see if you can tell the difference. Hopefully you guys could hear that, right? I'm hoping you could. There was a distinct difference because of the way I got this board ready, and you can actually see that it cut at the beginning, missed the middle, and cut at the opposite end. In other words, the edge of this board was shaped quite a bit. It's hard to do this, like this. Okay, so it's going to take more than one pass to flatten the edge of this board, all right? So that's another thing is a lot of times you'll know when you're done joining the edge of a board by the sound of it, okay? It also got a lot easier to push the board through when I got to that area that wasn't cutting, so your sense of touch. So let's make another pass and see if that gets rid of the last of those pencil marks. So I'm wondering if you guys could hear that. There was a consistent sound all the way along the entire length of the board, and we've gotten rid of the last of it. Okay, so that edge is jointed, and what that should give us is placing a square against the face we just jointed, and on that edge, we should have a perfect 90 degrees along the entire length of the board. That's my hope. Okay, so that is the basics of the joiner. Let me see if I can address a few of these questions. All right, and see what you guys are asking here, because I do want you to ask questions. So let's see what we got here. All right. Raiden, I'd have to look at my other computer to see if your test is turned in. I think, well, we'll find out. I'll take a look. Email me, Raiden, and that'll allow me to sit down this afternoon and check, and I can respond to you, okay? All right. Yes, Micah, I was about to. AJ, your internet's bad. Okay. So you guys have any questions about the joiner? Okay, anything you didn't understand or you don't know? Remember, it's 12-inch minimum length on the joiner. Okay, you have to use push pads. All right, you always need to use push pads. Okay, one of the things I didn't mention, it's especially true on longer boards, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is a piece of oak. All right. I'll go ahead, let me take a look at this and see what it looks like. Well, let's see what happens. We'll mark up the surface of it and we'll see what happens, all right? See if you can tell by the sound where it will take the pencil marks away and where it will leave them. Okay? All right, so what I want you to pay attention to here is my hand position, especially when I'm moving this board through the cutter. So I have to start out here on the infeed table. I don't have any choice, all right? But as I cross the cutter head, okay, what you're gonna see me do, hopefully, is start walking the board like this. Now all my pressure is on the outfeed table. If I don't do that, it's gonna rock. It's gonna sit here and do this because the infeed table is lower. Okay, so I'm gonna walk it through like that. So I want you guys to watch my hand position and see where they go, all right? And listen to it. We've got this side marked up pretty well, okay? We'll go from there, all right? That was a long board. All right, so you should have been able to tell from the sound, right, that the entire face got jointed, right? There's no pencil marks left. So you have a nice flat surface, all right? That was a piece of oak. A little slower. One of the things you need to understand about woodworking tools is, well, you can't see me, so that's kind of dumb, is that, well, a couple things. There's about a million things you need to understand about them. But these machines respond to feed rate. In other words, how quickly a piece of material is put through a machine. But they also, a lot depends on the type of material you're running through a machine. So for example, let's use the joiner for example. I can put a piece of pine like this face down through the machine, and the machine's not going to struggle with it much. I can usually feed the material a little faster than I could, say, a harder piece of oak or a wider, hard piece of hard maple. So the material you are pushing through a machine or pushing a machine through has a lot to do with, or your feed rate has a lot to do with the material you're pushing through. Another thing that can tell you a lot about a machine is the shavings from that machine. The sawdust, the wood shavings, okay? That will give you an idea of how aggressive a machine is. For example, these are the shavings from the joiner. Let's see if I can stand here and it'll focus a little better on it maybe. Okay, you can kind of see they're fairly large, right? A sander, for example, our drum sander, it's going to look like powder, just plain old sawdust. The miter saw is going to throw off some pretty good sized chips. The CNC is going to throw off some pretty good sized chips. Our planer, which we'll show you that run on another day, throws off some huge chips. So it's a lot more aggressive in the way it mills lumber. So chip size can tell you a little bit about a machine as well. No, it does not count as extra credit if you do a project at home. There is no extra credit available, and unless every single student had the ability to do that and try to get extra credit, there's no way we could do it. It's a simple matter of equity. That's one of the things we're struggling with so hard right now, is because there's a lot of kids out there that don't have internet or have very poor internet, and it makes it difficult for some of them, okay? So any questions about the jointer? Okay, 12-inch minimum length. Always use push pads. Okay, no gloves, no baggy clothes, no hanging jewelry, things like that. Its main purpose, as far as you guys are concerned in beginning woods, the main purpose of the joiner is to flatten, straighten, and square the edge of a board. And what we're talking about here, and we've said this before, that's an edge. That's the other edge. That's a face. That's the other face. That's an end, right? And that's an end. And those terms are important to know the difference, okay? Now, a couple things. Let's talk a little bit more about material, okay? A lot of you guys are thinking, and I know in a couple of the videos they mentioned that the length of a board, okay, the length of a board goes with the grain. Now, I don't know how well you can see the grain in this board, but this is the direction that the grain is going, like this, right? Okay, so that's the length. Pretty straightforward, pretty standard, pretty basic, right? But what happens when there is no grain? Okay, so I don't like to use that length is determined or goes along with the grain. I don't like to use that as an example because in this shop we use a lot of materials that have no grain direction. So you can't really go by that. So length is basically just the longest dimension. Okay, it's pretty easy to determine. So for example, on this guy right here, on this piece of particle board, right, this is the length. Okay, this is the width. All right, and this is the thickness. Okay, and that actually matters because one of the biggest rules we have in this shop is our standard order of operations. okay? And our order of operations is basically how you move through the shop from machine to machine to machine to machine to get a piece of material ready to use in furniture, okay? And our order of operations is this. We do thickness first, okay? In other words, we'll joint one face and we'll plane the opposite face to get a consistent thickness and create two parallel faces, all right? So we do thickness first, then we do width, all right? Our width process is jointing one edge and ripping the opposite edge on the table saw. And we'll show you that tomorrow, okay? Okay, so thickness, then width, then we deal with length, all right? Length is gonna be done solely on the miter saw. And that's the last process we do other than joinery, dados, rabbets, dovetails, box joints, all those funky things. That's the last thing we do in prepping a piece of material for use. So thickness, width, length. We also can call it faces for thickness, edges for width, and ends for length. That's how some people remember it. It's called the FEE system, F-E-E, faces, edges, ends. Okay, thickness, width, length. So that's our order of operations in the shop. We will always, well, I hate to say always because there's a lot of times there are exceptions to the rule, but in beginning woods, that's pretty much always going to be how you would approach a piece of material and move through the shop. You'd start at the joiner, then you go to the planer, then you come back to the joiner, then you go to the table saw, then you go to the miter saw, blah, 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 blah. Way too much information. We'll show it to you instead of just telling it to you, okay? So if you guys have questions, please ask, okay? I'm right here for questions. We're not going to leave, okay? I don't want anybody checking out until it's time to check out. So you can ask some questions. Let's go, well, heck, we're here. We might as well, nope, I know exactly what I was gonna do. And let me make sure.
Do we use jigsaws?
No, we have one, but we have bandsaws, and they're a lot more accurate on jigs than jigsaws are. And the other thing about, well, the only time we use jigsaws is if our material is too big to get onto a bandsaw, or if we're cutting interior cuts, like inside circles, inside shapes, things like that, where there's no entry point from the edge of the board. A bandsaw needs an entry point from the edge of the board. A jigsaw doesn't. You can drill a hole and put the jigsaw blade right down into it and cut it from that. You can actually plunge a jigsaw if you're careful about it. It's been done. But yeah, jigs, we have one, and I avoid it at all costs because I've never really liked the accuracy of those things, really. So, good question though. We do have a jigsaw, but we just don't use it much. So the other thing we're going to try and accomplish this semester, one of the things you guys do in beginning woods, and let me see if I can get the camera over there, is your required project. Everybody in class does the same project. Your required project is a single drawer nightstand, okay? This is kind of an example. These are a couple that students left, didn't take home, didn't pick up. Okay, and there's no drawer in it, but we use them for bit storage for our router table and stuff like that. But it consists of several different things. For example, so I can see this. Basically, the carcass, which is the main structure of the nightstand, consists of 2 particle board sides, a particle board back, and 1, 2 particle board shells. Okay. Well, particle board isn't the prettiest stuff in the world. So we always have you guys paint the 2 sides and then the large opening down here. You'd have a choice of a bunch of different paint colors and stuff like that. Then there is a solid material face frame, which consists of 2 styles, the vertical pieces, and 3 rails. 1, a top rail, a middle rail, and a bottom rail. Okay. Then there's also some side trim, right? Some 2 vertical styles on the side trim, here and here, then 2 horizontal rails on the side trim, just to kind of trim the side out, make it look a little better. Same thing on the other side, okay? And then there's a solid wood top, and then there's a drawer with a solid wood front on the drawer. I think what I'm gonna do to try and keep myself and you guys from going bored getting bored to death is probably starting end of this week. We're going to go through this shop and build one of these nightstands. We're going to go through the whole process, and you'll see the whole shebang of a nightstand being built. Okay, I'll do the same thing for fourth period. But the nice thing about that is it will introduce you to all the tools and their practical application, instead of just sitting here saying, yeah, this joints the edge of the board, it's cool, or this rips a board, or this cuts a board in length, it's cool. You'll see exactly an example of what it's being used for in making a small piece of furniture. Okay, so hopefully that will help lower the level of boredom to a certain extent. Okay, but we're going to work on that. I think I have all the material I need. I haven't bought material this year because there's nobody here. So that's going to be that. We'll do a little CNC work on a piece of it so you guys can see the CNC run. We'll do a little bit of laser work on it so you guys can see the laser run and see how that works. You can actually go to my website that I told you about earlier, and you can see some pictures, examples of nightstands that had laser work and CNC work done in the past. And that's about it. Yeah, we're going to call it. I appreciate you guys showing up. Do me a favor, next time you do show up, let's try to be here on time so we can get here on time and everybody catches everything we're supposed to say or they're supposed to see. And God, this is really weird talking about you guys here. It's mind-boggling how funky it is, but we'll get past it, I guess. I'm not a TV personality. I'd rather just have you guys here. So ask questions if you have questions. I'm glad you guys were here on Monday. Let's make sure you're all here on Tuesday. Get here on time. You guys have a great day. All right. I will see you tomorrow afternoon. Take care of yourselves.